When you play Red Dead Redemption 2, you don't just fly through it. You want to experience everything there is to experience. I've spent weeks and months just riding through towns. Even after I finished the game, I still remember every specific ride. I remember a specific sunset that looked particularly beautiful. I remember specific conversations that I had at camp that were just stupid enough for me to remember them. And Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of those rare, big budget AAA games that feels confident enough to finally just move slowly. It lets things marinate. It doesn't rush you to the next fight. It makes you sit with the gang. It makes you travel. It makes you do the boring parts of survival. Because it's actually kind of interesting to do those things. This is a story about people trying to hold on to something that's already slipping away. So this isn't a complete documentary about Rockstar's development that you're probably used to seeing from me. This is a retrospective on the game itself, what it feels like to exist in the world, why the writing just simply works, how the gunplay and systems support the tone of the game, and there's so much more I haven't even named yet. So without further ado, let's get into why I still believe to this day, after 7 years since its release, which doesn't feel real, that Red Dead Redemption 2 is still and may always be Rockstar's best game. Red Dead Redemption 2's world design is the benchmark for believable open worlds, and what makes it work isn't just the size, because a lot of games, especially today, are big. It's the density and the behavior of every little thing inside of the world. You can stand still in a random area and the world still feels active. Animals are still going where the animals were going. People still ride past you like they have a destination, they're not just spawning in. And normally the biggest problem with open world games is that everything feels too perfect. The real world isn't perfect, it's messy, and Red Dead Redemption 2 somehow nails that. I can't explain it, but the game doesn't feel perfect. Everything looks just barely imperfect, and it all comes together to perfectly fit the story's slow and constant movement. Everything just works, it all meshes together. Each region of the game that you visit throughout the story also has its own passion or its own mission behind it. The early forests and mountains feel harsh and survival focused, trying to show you how desperate the gang is after the Blackwater massacre. The heartlands feel open and deceptively calm, like the gang is trying to pretend that life can be simple after what they did. Lemoyne, sorry for the pronunciation, feels humid, dense, and political, like violence is baked into the landscape. St. Denis is the smashing reminder that the future is coming and that the gang is outdated and outlaws need to move on. Towns play their own roles in the story as well. The towns aren't just stops that the characters make throughout the story. Towns are the crushing reminder of what the outlaws do to the people that they encounter. Valentine feels like a rough working town that only tolerates you because you're spending money and because you're not causing too much trouble as of now. Strawberry feels like it's civilized, or at least trying to be, and it's a fragile little community. Rhodes feels small, old, and quietly rotten at its core. And St. Denis is the big one, the loud, modern, crowded, and full of the feeling that outlaws are simply just not welcome. The best part is how travel connects all of it. Getting from point A to point B isn't a loading screen, it's where the game lives. You're hearing camp talk, random encounters, wildlife, distant gunfire, strangers yelling for help, everything that makes the world feel like it's happening whether you're there or not. It's just something I can't explain. You have to play it to understand why traveling in Red Dead just doesn't feel like traveling. You're not just going from point A to point B, you're experiencing an entire life in between, and it's just something you have to play for yourself to understand. But as believable as the world design is, it would be nothing without the fantastic sound design that Red Dead Redemption has. I would go as far to say that you can close your eyes and still know exactly where you are at in the game. Forests and swamps all sound different, towns and plains are completely different, everything has its own unique sound to it. You could tell whether it's rainy, windy, clear skies, everything has its unique sound. You hear your horse's hooves change on mud versus rock, you hear gunshots echo differently depending on terrain, even the camp has its own sound, its identity. You hear laughter, arguments, songs, people chopping wood, someone practicing an an instrument, and the music is used carefully. It always comes in at the perfect moment, and it always leaves at the perfect moment. Music can be overbearing, it can always be lingering on too long, but it never does. Red Dead Redemption 2 always knows when to cut out the music and immediately transfer into a more serious tone. It never, in my opinion, feels like the music is overpowering a impactful moment. It always adds to it, never takes away from it, and that's why, in my opinion, it's some really good sound design. But as you can probably tell, I don't know much about sound design, so if you're more into it than I am, please let me know in the comment section down below and I'll look for your comment. And with all of the things I just named, especially the sound design, a combat system is going to naturally form out of that, and it does beautifully. The weapons always feel like they have weight. They feel like they have impact. The reloads are taking time. You can't just hit a button and immediately begin shooting again. Accuracy is not as easy as it looks, especially on keyboard and mouse. And the game's animation focus means that everything you do is physical. When you hit a button to draw your gun, you draw the gun. When you hit a button to chamber a round, you chamber the round. And you always have to make sure you're cleaning your weapons and maintaining them, otherwise you're going to have to deal with the consequences during a shootout. Everything has a draw. You want to pull out a more powerful weapon during a fight? It's going to take time. You got to chamber a round mid-fight? It's going to take time. You can only carry so many weapons. Everything has a bonus and a negative. It's never just one or the other. The game just nails the combat system, and again, it's one of those things that isn't for everyone. The combat is slow, it's gritty, it takes time to do things, and that's not for everyone, but it's what makes Red Dead Redemption 2 so special. It's willing to make you do the slow things in order to make you feel like you're actually experiencing the game. It's special, and the Deadeye system may feel out of place for many, as it is more of an arcadey trick than other features of the game, but it's more of a tool that lets you handle situations that would realistically be impossible, like just being outnumbered, ambushes, or tight escapes. It does its best to balance arcade with realism, and I think it's as close as you're going to get in a game like this. And the gun variety is handled in a way that keeps things grounded. You're not constantly swapping to absurd weapons. You find guns, you learn them, you keep them, and you build familiarity with your guns. You're not constantly swapping them out for a more powerful weapon. Once you buy one that you like, that's probably going to be in your rotation for quite a while. Most guns are well balanced. They all have their benefits, but they also all have their negatives. And the honor system, of course, is back from the first game, and it's not a very in-depth analysis of how you're playing as a person. It's just a bar that slides right or slides left, and it's not meant to be much more than that. I'm not going to go too much deeper into it. It's a bar at the bottom of the screen that moves left or right. It doesn't have much impact on the game. Even when it comes to just getting from point A to point B, Red Dead Redemption 2 just throws the open world vehicle system out the window. In most open world games, you steal a vehicle and that's now your vehicle. But in Red Dead Redemption 2, you don't really steal a horse. Your goal is to buy a horse and then make it your partner. You want to build a bond with it. You commit to that horse. You don't just replace it on a whim. You feed your horse, you calm it down, you brush it, and as your bond grows, the horse becomes way more reliable. And then over time, you learn how your horse reacts to gunfire, predators, or just chaos in general around the map. And because travel is so central to the game's core idea, your horse becomes a huge part of the game. Even when you do use wagons or trains, they don't necessarily replace your horse. They're just there to show that the world is modernizing. Outlaws are being outdated, and trains are a big symbol of that. Progress is rolling through, and eventually the old way of the Wild West is going to pass, and that is all those are supposed to represent, because trains are slower than just taking your horse. Wagons are traditionally slower. Your horse is always going to be a more reliable form of transportation, and that's a strategic decision from Rockstar. And unlike other games, this is a unique vehicle. The whole game centering around your horse is such a good idea, because you don't feel like you're just driving a car that's doing whatever you want whenever you want. If you're in the middle of a gunfight and your horse gets overwhelmed, well, now you're out of a vehicle. If you have a predator chasing after you and you don't deal with it, well, you're out of a vehicle. There is so many things that could happen to make your horse no longer want you on their back, and it feels just real. It feels good and it's just something that no other game has fully committed to, unlike Red Dead Redemption. But the horses aren't perfect. They are far from perfect, as a matter of fact. Actually controlling the horse is where the problems come into play, because unlike real horses, the smallest rock will send you flying. The smallest rock will make them just completely stop in their place. The momentum completely killed just because a little pebble is in the way. There's other problems, like when you're trying to do a 360, the horse is just really clunky. Sometimes it doesn't go the direction you're thinking, other times it'll just go completely the wrong direction. They aren't perfect. They really aren't. And I'm showing you probably tons of examples right here, but these aren't that common. They are iffy, but they're still really good. And when they work, they work. And if you ever happen to get bored of the traditional style that RDR2 has, which is kill a bad guy here or there and then go from point A to point B and watch a cutscene, well, you could always switch it up and go play the realistic hunting minigame. You know, track some animals, learn their habits, and you can use the right weapons to aim for cleaner kills and have more profitable loot. Managing the pelts before they rot is also a feature, but it's not that bad. Everything is designed to feel like you're actually hunting, not just shooting an animal to get some loot. It all feels real, and it's designed really well. Maybe not the craziest hunting system of all time, but to be just a minigame, it's really well done. The last thing I want to talk about is the story, so warning, there may be a couple spoilers or something thrown in that might spoil something for you, so if you don't want that, please click off, go play the game, and come back. Alright, now that that's out of the way and we talked about the world, the pacing, the characters, and everything and why it meshes so well together, in my opinion, here's the glue that holds it all together. Red Dead Redemption 2's story is so good because it's not actually an outlaw power fantasy. It's more of a tragedy. It's more of a story about loss. It sells you the promise of a genre, big scores, freedom, open land, one more job, and then it slowly reveals the truth underneath. The West is dying, the gang is broken, and the people inside it are surviving on denial. Most games begin at the height of things, when the crew is strong, when the plan is clear, the future is wide open. Red Dead Redemption 2 starts with you already running. The Blackwater Massacre already happened, the damage is already done, the gang is already bleeding out. They just don't know it yet. And that changes the whole feeling of the story. From minute one, it's not a rise, it's a long, slow, downhill slide. Every camp move feels like the walls are tightening even tighter. Every job feels like you're just delaying the inevitable. And throughout the story, sure, there are enemies, the Pinkertons, rival gangs, the law, whatever the case may be. But the story's best conflict is internal. It's Dutch's refusal to accept the reality he's living in, and it's everyone around him finding reasons to keep believing in him. That's why it feels unique, because the gang doesn't collapse because one dramatic betrayal. It collapses the way real groups collapse. Pride getting in the way of success, fear getting in the way of risk, rationalizations of things that don't need to be rationalized. You're not watching bad things happen. You're watching people make bad choices and call them necessary. And most importantly, Dutch doesn't just wake up one morning and become the villain. He erodes over time. The speeches you see are getting more and more desperate. Blame shifts even further outward. Doubt becomes disloyalty. And he starts surrounding himself with voices that make him feel like the hero again instead of voices that he needs to hear. The writing is smart enough to keep Dutch charismatic while he's falling apart, and that's what makes it even more painful. You can see why people keep following him even as he's destroying them. Dutch's tragedy is that he's addicted to the myth he himself had created, and he'll burn everyone else to just keep that myth alive. And unlike most stories, our protagonist isn't the exact opposite of the villain. He's quite similar in most ways. He's an honest man who is believing most of the same myths Dutch himself believes. The only difference is he comes around on them. Instead of saying he did what he was told and just following Dutch's orders, he starts rebelling. He starts seeing the things he wants to see. And the story never pretends doing good at the end erases the past. It doesn't give him a reset button. It gives you something harsher and more realistic. Redemption is just choosing to do the right thing while still carrying what you've done. That's why Arthur's final stretch hits so hard. It isn't heroic, it's just simply human. He learns from his mistakes, and although it was too late to fully redeem himself and live, he did what he could. And in the end, while he's laying there looking at the sunset, thinking about everything he did, thinking about his life, the only emotion that you can truly describe is relief. It wasn't relief that he was going to live, it was relief at the fact that he became the man he always wanted to be. And yet, Red Dead Redemption 2's biggest storytelling tool is hidden in plain sight. And it's not even a cutscene or a mission or some plot twist, it's the camp. The camp that you visit on a regular basis, the camp where you get all your missions. Because the camp isn't just where you get those missions, the camp is where the story proves itself. It's where the gang stops being characters in a game and starts feeling like a real messy family. And once you start believing in that family, you want to see them succeed, but instead, all you see is the family gets smaller and smaller. Out on missions, the gang still pretend they're professionals, they're dangerous, they're legends. They can ride into a town and act like the world hasn't changed, but back at camp, the mask starts to slip. You see who they actually are, you see them be tired, you see them scared, you see them performing for everyone else. The outlaw myth sounds heroic in Dutch's speeches, but the camp shows the reality. They're hungry people with bruised egos, simmering fear, and a family held together by routine. So the more time you spend there, the more you understand what the story is really about. It's not about freedom, it's about survival and the denial and the refusal to accept reality. And once everything falls apart, Arthur is dead, the gang disbands, and John is on his own raising his family, the story is just as cruel to John as it was to Arthur. Because despite trying to get his act together, despite trying to be there for his family and be a noble man, that life that he once lived, that journey he was through, he just couldn't leave behind, and it would haunt him all the way to his death. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please hit a like and subscribe, as I'm not even kidding. I think it says 99.9% of you aren't subscribed, so, please consider. And if you really liked the video, please consider becoming a channel member, as that directly supports the content. So without further ado, this has been my Red Dead Redemption 2 retrospective. I didn't cover everything, but I covered what was important to me. Thank you all for watching, and have a good day.